Hello, it's Miss Heather, piano and voice teacher here at Conservatory of the Ozarks, and I'm here today with Cynthia. So, okay, I want to tell you some things about your body, well, about your vocal tract. So, can you see this if I hold it up here? And that way you can see it when you get home too. So, this little deal here, that white line, see that? That is called the epiglottis. And right underneath are the vocal folds. And so the space here, that's sort of like between the epiglottis and the vocal folds, and the opening between the vocal folds, like that is called the glottis. And underneath the vocal folds is the trachea, or windpipe. And the vocal folds sometimes are called the voice box, or the Adam's apple, inside of the larynx. But larynx, you know, the slang terms are like voice box, Adam's apple. And so the vocal folds are apart, sort of like in a V shape, like this. This would be the bird's eye view, and this would be the side view. So the little deal here, this is the sides of the vocal folds, and the epiglottis is right above, right? And the glottis is also right above and in the middle of the vocal folds, and then underneath the vocal folds is the trachea. So the air comes up from the lungs through the trachea, and the vocal folds, if the vocal folds are apart, like this picture, the air just goes through the hole, and you exhale. That's called, you know, exhaling. If the folds are open, when the air comes in through the mouth and goes down into the trachea and down into the lungs, then if the vocal folds are apart, that's inhaling. So we can use our larynx to help us inhale, exhale, or swallow if we keep the vocal folds apart when we take in food or liquid. And actually swallowing is the primary function of the larynx. It squeezes and brings the food down into the esophagus. Or you can use it to breathe air into the trachea and the lungs. So the ability to phonate, which is the other option, is just like kind of a happy accident, because some creatures have a larynx but cannot phonate. They just need it to swallow or whatever. And so if we bring these vocal folds together over the top of the trachea, then the folds being pushed together and the air coming up through the two folds pushed together is what creates phonation, or that's how we produce sound. Phonation can be speaking or singing, but it's when you choose to not just let the air escape between the vocal folds, but you close the vocal folds and cause a vibration. So right above all of that process, we have this epiglottis here, which can cover the trachea so we don't like take water into our lungs, or take, aspirate food into our lungs. And when you begin phonation as opposed to exhalation, you can begin phonation, or the onset of phonation, 3 ways, really. You can have a smooth onset, which is what we would hope for. Gentle but full, just the right amount of air pressure underneath the larynx. This is another way of seeing the larynx, right? So just the right amount of air here, and then here the epiglottis is blue, right? And the glottis is like the pink part. And so the other way of starting, if you go from the middle, which is the smooth onset, if you go over here, you could have an airy onset, where the vocal folds are not coming together in a full enough sort of contact. And so you could have a breathy or diffused or airy tone quality, like could you do that? Try that. Yeah, so the onset of your phonation was kind of airy. When I try to demonstrate that, my throat's already scratchy today from a cold, but even if I had a perfectly healthy throat, if I tried to have an airy onset like that, I feel a scratchiness. Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, it feels very uncomfortable. And so that's sort of like whispering like this, right? Like that's not having a full contact with your vocal folds. So that puts a little bit more stress on your vocal folds when you are having the airy onset. The other direction you could go is you could have a glottal onset or a glottal attack, which would be like kind of if you said, uh-oh, you see, and you can hear that thump. It's like you're smacking the note, sort of. So try making that way. Right. And you can feel, that also feels uncomfortable, but in a different way, right? Like a tight squeezing sort of way.
Yes.
And so that is when we're taking the glottis and we are really, really pushing those vocal folds together too much. And so when the air manages to push through the vocal folds, it's like a pretty, like a big poof of sound. Sort of sounds like you're spanking the note or something, right?
Right.
And so I wanted to say all of that to you. Do you understand what I'm describing, you think?
I think.
Am I making sense? Okay. So do you have a guess as to why I wanted to say all of that to you? Specifically you.
Oh, I don't know, just because of my vocal health.
Yeah.
Is
Like when I'm saying these 3 types of onsets, do you like feel like, oh, I recognize that in myself? Are any of those 3 familiar to you?
well, probably the first one.
The airy one? When do you think you are using the airy or diffused onset for your phonation?
I don't think it is when I first start, is it?
Right, and so we're talking about the onset. So do you kind of feel like you recognize yourself in any of the 3? Because you start always one of those 3 ways. Too much pressure, or not enough pressure, or just the right amount of pressure. Like those are kind of the 3 ways. So the airy onset,
Probably
the smooth
not
onset,
enough.
or the glottal.
Not enough.
And why do you think that?
I don't know, maybe it's not connecting there.
I think you think
Maybe
that
it's-
because in your speaking voice even, you hear roughness, right? The
Yes, it
that kind of
doesn't
sound.
connect,
But at the onset, particularly when you don't have a consonant, when you're starting with a vowel when you're phonating, you are starting with a glottal attack. Do you hear yourself in that?
Okay, I
So-
do now that you said it.
Yeah, so remember the
Yes.
So do it on purpose right now. Well, it hurts to do it, doesn't it? You hear it, right? Now try to do a diffused or airy onset. Sort of like you're trying to whisper the sound. Try it again. Yeah, you hear a lot of air, right? Very soft for the onset, but uncomfortable though, because it's too soft. And then go back to the glottal. Now hit it. Yes. Right? So neither of those are healthful for your voice, and neither are beautiful. The only time we would use a glottal onset would be when singing in German, which you're not doing right now. So, so let's see if we can find just a smooth onset. So, just like smooth, no smack. Do you hear the smack there still? By yourself? Now, one thing you could do to stabilize the onset is to try to think of having vibrato right when you begin the pitch. Yes, try it again. And now before that, even if we back up a little farther, we can think of opening by letting the jaw drop open like we've been talking about. Let the tongue fall down too. Open the back of your throat like the straight pipe exercise. And let yourself fill up with air. And then we'll let this power that vibrato right at the onset. So we open, release. Cynthia, oh my God, I just almost said a cuss word. What?
Yeah.
What was that sound?
Okay.
I'm gonna cry. Oh my goodness, can you open again? Release again.
Try it.
Spin from the onset. That was gorgeous. Don't do it till you're ready.
airy, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit diffused that time,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
How did you feel before you began your phonation and your inhale? Did you feel under pressure and a little nervous?
Well, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure when you do something and it goes really well and then you're like trying to reproduce it.
Mhm.
So take your time. When you're ready, open, release, and then begin your phonation. Think of a smooth line of like a laser beam coming out of your forehead, but instead of a laser beam that's red, it's like a laser beam of sunshine shining out. And start with the spin in front of your face.
Oh, no. It was airy.
Still better than your average one, though. Oh, are you thinking of releasing your jaw or holding your jaw? Just let your jaw fall open. We aren't pushing our jaw down, and we're not pushing our stomach out with muscle engagement. We release, open, release.
Oh!
Did you hear it that time again?
Mhm.
Okay.
It came from
Yes!
further down
It
here.
came from down here! Oh!
It came from down here.
Wow, I feel so happy right now. Okay, so I want you to like listen to this when you get home, and so you'll hear more than you did right now. Even you'll hear. I'm sorry, my voice isn't in a better condition to demonstrate the good and bad right now. But anyways, I think you'll still be able to hear like the contrast. You'll like listening to the recording afterwards. It's almost like having a highlighter visually, but for your ears.
Yeah.
So any questions about
No,
that?
I really did hear the difference.
Good.
I felt the difference.
Good. I'm so glad.
And I am getting that feeling